All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our video tutorial for how to find acceleration from a graph. Okay, from a word problem, it's pretty cut and dry what you need to do, but on a graph, especially a distance versus time graph, we have to do a bunch of work first before we can even think about solving for acceleration. All right, and that is, we still need to use this equation right here. A equals, right, V final minus V initial divided by time. That is something that we have to use from the we have to think about causing acceleration, right? However, the thing that we need to first do is we need to first be able to calculate for velocity and for a final and the initial, because a distance versus time graph only tells us distance and time. So we have to calculate velocity, and we use the equation V equals, right, d over t. So it's the same thing as a speed equation. You're just substituting the speed velocity for speed instead. But it's the same thing. All right. So what we first need to do is we need to understand what's my initial and what's my final. All right. So it says from 5 to 10 seconds. So it's basically from this dot to this dot. So this is going to be my initial, and this is going to be my final, just because of the fact that 5 seconds comes first before 10 seconds. All right. So here's step one. Right? And there's 3 steps that you have to go through in order to solve this problem. Right? Step 1 is finding the V initial. Right? So I'm going to do my work, show my work again. Right? D equals and T equals. Just like what we did last week. Right? And so what you're going to first do is we're trying to solve for this. So this is going to be my question mark. Right? So how do you find distance? Well, that's where we go over here and we get 20. So I'm going to put 20 meters. And my time is down here. That's 5 seconds, right? So I'm going to put that in. So when I solve for that, I'm going to use this equation right here. V equals d over t. So V initial equals 20 divided by 5, which is, do real quick math, 4 meters per second. So that's step 1. Okay, and let's mark that off. Step 2, and let's change the color so that it's easier for you to follow, right? So step 2 is going to be finding V final. All right, so let's go look for V final. And let's do the same work. Again, I'm going to use V equals d over t. So I'm going to write down what I know and what I need to solve for. So I'm going to solve for V final. All right, again, where do I find my distance and where do I find my time? On my distance versus time graph, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw an arrow down here. I'm going to draw an arrow all the way across, right? So I get my numbers. I get 30 for my distance and 10 for my time. So I put 30 meters, 10 seconds. All right, and I use the equation V equals d over t again. So I'm going to go VF equals 30 over 10, which is, real quick math, 3 meters per second. All right, so now I've done those 3 steps, or 2 steps, I'm sorry. Now we can use the 3rd step, which is now finally solving for acceleration. Because now I know my V final, I know my V initial, and now I know my time as well. Okay, so let's now plug in those numbers into the equations. All right, as we go through, here we go. Let me delete this part so that way we can have that. And let's use purple for this one. Here we go. All right, and I'm going to cross this part so that way we don't get into that area. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to solve for acceleration. All right, so what do I do is I'm going to go acceleration equals V final, which is right here, right? And I forgot to totally mark this box so that way we know what our information is. All right, and this is being organized is really, really important, or else you're never going to be able to find all of your information. All right, so then we go 3 minus V initial, which we found here, which is 4. And we're going to divide that all by the time. And the time is right here, between 5 and 10 seconds. That's really easy math to say 10 minus 5, that's 5 seconds. So we're going to go 3 minus 4 equals 5. So if we do the math on this, it's going to be negative 1 over 5. All right, so if we ended up doing this, we would find that acceleration equals negative 0.2 meters per second squared. Oops, I just went completely over. It's negative 2 meters per second squared. And that is my answer for acceleration. All right, now don't get freaked out that you have a negative number in here. The negative number just means that you had a negative acceleration, meaning the object slowed down or it went backwards. In this case, we know that this object probably went in a straight line, so it slowed down. And this is how you do an acceleration problem. It's something that you can't do very, very quickly. Right? You have to be able to go through each step. Go through step 1, which is to find v initial. Step 2 is to find v final. And if you do that, then you can find acceleration through this equation right here. Okay? And that is how you find acceleration on a graph.